Okay, so I tried to go live, but I did not realize that you have to have at least 50 subscribers before you can go live on YouTube. So, this is my live. It's a pre-recorded. It's not necessarily pre-recorded for the sake of recording it in advance. I'm just recording it right now. I'm live currently on my phone, but I'm going to go ahead and record this and I'm going to upload it later. So that way we can make sure that all the things are covered. All the things. Okay. So we're going to, like I said, one of the things I love about being able to do this particular venture in life with capable limitations is that life has a way of preparing you for a lot of things. One of the words that I think that most of you all can agree with and probably can relate to is adaptability. If you have health challenges, and particularly if you have unseen health challenges, I can almost guarantee you that you have learned how to navigate things and how to adapt to changes, how to adapt on the fly, how to adjust to things. I'm certain you have. So that's one of our skill sets. Unfortunately, we don't always like to tap into, but it's there because we've had no other choice. Okay, so there is that. With that being said, today I wanted to make sure I got on here to discuss a conversation about access. So a lot of the times it is assumed, so we just talk about a lot of different assumptions, okay? It is assumed that the only healthcare challenges or the only health challenges that are normally recognized when it comes to disability are those that you can see. There are many different types of physical disabilities. There are many different types of disabilities of with their sensory disabilities, like sound or having speech or sight if you're blind or things of that nature, or if if you have hearing problems, things of that nature. And even those type of things, I've learned, even for those type of things, some of those type of disabilities you would not know unless someone told you. If somebody has a hearing issue, unless they have a visible hearing aid, things like that. But there are many internal. Our body is made of so many different types of organs and systems that are constantly at work. And as with any system, I don't care where it is or how you make it, what it is, every system can have breakdowns. Every system can have little quirks and things that can go wrong with it. And the same happens for our bodies. And so again, there are many, just as we know with those systems, there are many internal disability and system issues that are not seen with the naked eye. You cannot look at a person until, because your physical appearance from the outside can be fully intact and everything can be fully functional and look like everything is working well. But there may be more internal challenges that a person faces and has. And so I sort of like to say is that because, again, these are some of the things that are ignored, are overlooked, or unseen, because they're unseen or they're not necessarily acknowledged as often, and they also are not advocated for. And when something is not advocated for, or they're not discussed openly, or people do not have proper education about it, unfortunately you experience a lot of challenges because of that. So today I wanted to discuss one of the ones that you would never think should be there, and that is healthcare. Whether that's having access to adequate health care, whether that's finding the correct doctors that you need, finding the right specialty, the specialists, and finding trying to figure out if you have doctors that are capable and knowledgeable about your particular conditions. And so one of the ways that I wanted to do that was also, again, discussing one of the tenets here is overcoming by the word of our testimony. I am a Christian by belief. You don't have to be on this page, but I am a Christian by belief. And so for me, one of the things that's important to me is knowing that we are not victims, right? We're not victims. Even when we don't choose the things that are happening to us, the ways that we are born, the experiences, we don't get to choose all of those things. But that does not mean that we have to limit ourselves to having a life that's not full of, us thriving and prospering and those type of things, or even what I've had the experience in my own life of not shutting down, not hiding. It is actually, I believe in the scripture that talks about we are overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so I don't want to just stop at my salvation. I actually know that it's needed for me to testify in the sense of being able to tell about the good things that has happened to me. And that necessarily does not mean it has to be a good experience for good to come from it. So, and I'm a witness to the fact that good has come, even with the challenges. I have challenges every day, but that does not mean that good does not come from it. Good always come, including this. So with that being said, I'm going to tell a little bit about my journey. Some of my journeys of that my parents, it started with my parents, that also, that kind of includes like some of the things that happened in my childhood going up into even now. So I'll go on to say, so I'll go ahead and also let you all know, this will probably be broken up into several segments. I will guarantee you that it'll be into several segments, because I want to make sure we're covering a lot of different things. Even if on the healthcare, I'm not gonna rush through it. I do talk fast, so if we were live, I would tell me to slow down, but I'll have to kind of remind myself about that. But if not, as I tell my family, speed your hearing up. You got to speed it up, catch up, keep up. But anywho, so I will say that I want to talk about, over the course of some time, I want to talk about several subjects. I want to talk about healthcare. I want to talk about our personal health and the things of how, different aspects of our health that you may be discovering are impacted by certain other challenges that you have with your health. I want to discuss, how these things have impacted our dating and relationship that we have. What's your experience been like? How is it telling someone new when you're going on a date or you're getting to know someone? When do you talk to someone about your health condition? When do you say like, hey, by the way, when do you discuss these things? Have you? I also want to be able to talk about this concerning like employment. Like, have you had issues and concerns with employment concerning your health conditions? Have you had issues and concerns? When do you disclose this information? Do you not disclose this information? Those type of things. I want to make sure we're talking about those things as well. Also, there's some other issues that I wanted to talk about, some other challenges as well about, just personality. I think that for a lot of people that I've met and have seen and researched and read and watched videos and those type of things, for a lot of people, when you're experiencing a health challenge, it isn't just affecting your physical health. It also can affect your emotional health. It can affect your mental health. It can affect your just a lot of different areas. It can affect your heart. It can affect so many things. How you perceive yourself, your self-esteem. It can affect a lot of areas of your life. So I want to make sure again that we're talking about that as well, and just navigating just through those things, but also just exploring like, hey, what are some things you've had to overcome as you've come to a place of acceptance? Have you experienced grief? Grief is also a thing that can happen while you're dealing with different health challenges. You can also experience grief. Grief is not just about death in the sense of a physical loss of a person's life. Grief can also be a loss of an opportunity. So I want to discuss that as well. So I wanted to start this series off discussing healthcare. So I'll tell you again a little bit about my journey. So again, my name is Natalie. I have a health condition that I was born with. It's called a congenital condition. I have a bladder and kidney condition that I was born with that my family did not know at the time that I was born. It wasn't something you can just look at me and tell. According to the doctors, when I was born, everything was good and healthy. I'll even go as far as to say my mother, I have had a very special life, a very unique life from the moment that I came here. I'll get more into that story a little bit later on in more detail, but I will say that my mother had me at home. So I was a home birth. It wasn't a planned home birth. I know that's more popular nowadays. And I know even back in the older days, I used to do that. But my mother, I was born in the 80s. So that we were going to hospitals. But unfortunately, my mother, when she went to the hospital, she was told to go home. She said, they said she was fine. She wasn't quite in labor. She wasn't in labor. Just go home. It's like maybe false labor. She was having some pains. Just go home. But in the middle of the night, early in the morning, my mother was still in labor. She was still having contractions. She was still having pain. And around, she said around 6 o'clock in the morning, she got up and she was still having a lot of pain. She went in the bathroom. And so at some point, I think she was between like 6 and 7, she got up and she went to the bathroom and she was just like in a lot of pain. Then she said that by some point, she stayed in there for quite a while. And then at some point while she was in the bathroom, she just felt this urgency to push, and lo and behold, there I was. And so I was born at 8 something in the morning at home. So that started my journey. My journey has not been typical. I was born in a bathroom at home. Isn't that something? My journey has not been typical, but that was all by design. And I'm so grateful at this point. Haven't always. I'll also get into that a little bit later on in some another series. But so at when I was born, there wasn't any distinguishing factors that said I have a health condition. Clean bill of health up until, from what they knew. Made sure that everything was good to go. But around the age of 3, so that I would say that it's crazy because we were in Germany. My father was in the military. And for anyone who knows anything about military life, first and foremost, my gosh, shout out to all the military brats on here. Oh my goodness. Man, TRICARE. Man, we had no idea how we were okay. We were all right for a little bit with TRICARE. It had its challenges, but it was all right. But I said that to say, my parents, we were in Germany. And initially, so there are a couple of things you need to make sure that we're discussing and talking about as well, because for our family, things were different. We weren't in the States. So things were a little bit different already as it was, because we were overseas. So I was between the ages of 3 and 4. And I went to the bathroom. Just by the way, so I'm not one of those kind of people. I may get graphic with certain things. And I'm not one of those kind of people who feels any kind of way about that. I talk this is normal and regular around stuff. It's a natural part of life, a natural part of the human body, all those different things. So if that's not your thing, brace yourself. So we were at home. It's kind of crazy because as young as I was, I still remember some of these things. A lot of it, actually, I remember. But we were at home. I had to go to the bathroom. I need to use the restroom. And when I went to the restroom, I remember noticing there was blood on the tissue. And just being a child, you see blood is scary. So I wasn't thinking about where the blood was coming from. I wasn't thinking about why. I just seen blood and I was scared. So of course I called my mom and my parents came rushing. My mom was coming in there in the bathroom, and my mom panicked. And, she was like, looking at us like, what's going on? So she's thinking the worst of all things, that something's going on. Just asking the questions. Was I being touched? She's asking all the different questions, right? And they got me to the hospital. It's crazy because for those of us who know, like the military stuff, like when you have back in the days, I don't know if they do anything different than how it was back in the days when my father retired, but you used to have a physical medical record that you would check out when you were going from one station to the other stations and getting transferred. You were getting stationed from one place to the other. You would check that record out and take it with you, take it and sign it or whatever. So at some point when we were leaving North Carolina and we were going to Tennessee, I ended up we had to check out our records and take it to the base we were going to. And I remember sitting there reading my records. I was fascinated. I was reading my medical records. I was going through all my different things, just reading over this stuff, and I was just fascinated with all the information. Like, oh my God, this is my whole life in a folder. But as I was reading, I was also discovering so much that you don't have comprehension for as a child. Of course, I was 3 or 4 years old, so of course I didn't know. But later on in life, when I was reading what the doctors were saying, I was like, hold on, that can't be right. My mother had said, so I asked questions, of course, to my family, but my mother was discussing with me that, so during that time, because it said in my medical records, the doctors treated me for what they considered, at that point, they were just thinking like, oh, she has a urinary tract infection. I'm not sure if that's common. I've not heard since in all my years, I haven't heard of that many children having a urinary tract infection at that age of 3 and 4. And my mother was very, she's like, I don't, she said, how could she get that? Like, she was very skeptical about this. She's like, I don't think that's a urinary tract infection. But again, we were overseas. So she was just thinking like, she's going what the doctor is saying. And so, and then it stopped. So I was urinating blood. We didn't know it necessarily at the time, but I was urinating blood. It happened that one time and then it just stopped. So then, after that experience of me urinating blood, at that point, so you know how children, you go through like, peeing on yourself, wetting the bed, things like that. And so for a lot of children, you're potty training. By 3 or 4, you already have been potty trained, right? So for most children, but for me, even though I was potty trained, like on the daytime and nights and stuff like that, I can go to the bathroom on my own. I didn't have any problems going to the bathroom, using the bathroom, but I would have accidents, they call it. I would have accidents. And those accidents would happen frequently. I would wet the bed, things like that. And so by 3 and 4, it was still happening. By the time we came to the States, it was still happening. So we came to the States when I was like 5 because I remember I was in kindergarten in Germany. And then I started first grade in North Carolina. So when we got stationed back to the States, and so at the former Fort Bragg, I don't know what the new name is, but we were there. So I said all that to say, while we were there, so this is, and everyone who knew me, as far as in my teachers, every teacher that I had, they all knew these things were happening because my mom would, not only make them aware, but unfortunately, this was not something that I could just prevent or stop. So it happened while I was in school. It would happen when I was in school. There would be times when they would say she had an accident herself. And I had to have a change of clothes. My parents would bring, a change of clothes for me there at the school and things. So this was a regular part of my life that would happen periodically. And so at the time, by the time I was turning, because it was still happening, I was still with, and my parents would ask me how they tried so many different things. They, and I'll go on to say this too, because there's a whole segment that I will talk about this, and I may do it here in this segment, but I'll talk about this at some point about family and family relationships and things like that, and how get into spaces where and I won't tell you what to do or how to do. It's not my place to do that. But even for those who may go through, when we're talking about the grieving stages of those type of things, of like, grieving how you were handled, grieving how your parents may have handled you, grieving how your family or siblings may have handled you from the limited knowledge and information that they had or that they were given. That is okay. That is okay. That is okay. It's okay if you feel some kind of way about, the process of the life that you wanted to have, or the life of how you wish things were. That's okay. But it is my prayer that at some point you do get to a place, for yourself at least, where you get to a place of acceptance about your life story, about however it panned out, that you come to a place of acceptance about that. As even I've had to. So I'll go ahead and just say that while I was there, like I said, the doctors there in Germany, just assumed that, for what they were saying, that they just assumed that, it was just like, okay, a bladder infection or urinary tract infection. So a urinary tract infection. And so they'll just treat it that way. And that was the only time that's a very key, a key point for my health journey, because of things that happened later on in life. That moment was a very pivotal moment. So I would say, so again, it continued. That was between like 3 and 4. It continued happening as far, not urinating blood, but peeing on myself, having accidents, wetting the bed. Those things continued happening literally up and through adulthood. But it happened. I remember when I was 9 years old, around 9, my parents, again, because it continues to happen, we have our regular physicals or your yearly physicals. You go in, you talk to the doctor, they ask, how you're doing with school. And so my parents will bring that up, that this is still happening. They'll ask questions, is this still happening? This was still happening. So at some point, they recommended that I go see a specialist. So as you know, at TRICARE, they have like certain things, but they sent us off base to go see a specialist. So they recommended my parents to go to the Children's Hospital in Duke in North Carolina. And my parents took off from work. They took off from work. They took me out of school for the day. They took me to Duke. I remember I was up there all day long. It was a specialist where I had to be up there. They ran all kinds of different tests. They did psychological tests. They asked me different questions. They did blood work. I mean, I was up there all day, all day. And again, I was 9. And I remember this because I remember I had just got my hair done. My hair, so many different details. I'm a very detailed person. That's another thing too. So I'm a very detailed person. Love the details about not just my life, but about things in general. But there's a reason of how I became that way from some of these experiences, and I'll discuss that again a little bit later. But when we got there, we're seeing this specialist who's a child specialist. He supposed to be, a urologist or whatever. And I remember this particular guy. I don't remember him. I remember what some of the things he was saying. I remember this particular guy was very fascinated about the fact that I had already started puberty, and I had started puberty quite early. So by 9, I was well into puberty. I had a training, I was wearing bras by then. I was wearing training bras, like I said, in early elementary school. I had already started my period at 9 on my 9th birthday, as a matter of fact. So, all those different things. And he was just fascinated with and just shocked, with how that happened so quickly. And I was so young. So, again, these are all details and signs for things that we did not know were signs and details of things. But so at that point, though, the reason why we came, because they were trying to check my bladder, my kidneys, all those type of things to make sure everything was working fine. They could not find anything. And so he should have just told my parents. We can't figure anything out. We can't find anything. So, maybe we'll keep testing, or let's revisit this, or let's just table this and, revisit it after a while, run some more tests later. No, he did not do that. He decided to make some guesstimations and assumptions. And I remember him telling my parents, because I remember when the time he was discussing with my parents, I was looking at him like, no, that's not it. And so let me go on to say this. So he told my parents, he was like, well, maybe it's behavioral. He said, maybe it's behavioral. Maybe she's, just acting out. And, maybe you should get let's try something new. Let's get a chart. Put a chart up, in her room or somewhere she can see it, and make a little chart for the weekends. Put stars up there, or for the monthly, so you put stars up there so she can see these are all the days that you didn't wet the bed. These are all the days that you didn't have an accident. And I need you to understand, I'm Black, okay? I come from a Black family. My family is from Baltimore, Maryland. You understand? You don't tell no Black person, no Black family from Baltimore, Maryland, you don't tell them, oh, your child is just possibly acting out, and they're deciding to act out by peeing on themselves, excuse my language. Same different. Say what? And even though I didn't have the full language of it, I was looking at him like, no, that's not, I'm shaking my head like, no. I'm like, no, and I'm looking at him as he's telling my father. My father is becoming more angry the more this man talks. Like, I'm looking like, you're gonna get me killed. Sir, what are you saying? Shut your mouth. You're gonna get me killed, because that's not it. That ain't it. I can tell you for sure. I don't know what all's happening, but I can tell you that's not it. That's not it at all. I know who I live with. You understand? So I remember from that moment, and again, these things stand out to me because from that moment, life became very difficult. Very difficult. Because not only